You're listening to Edge of Real, a podcast for women rediscovering who they really are, beyond rules, roles, timelines, and expectations. I'm Kristen Hamilton, and I am so glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time in your day to be a part of our Edge of Real family. Hello. Today I want to talk about something that has been on my mind for several weeks now, and I want to lead you into the ideas as I myself was led into them. So recently I sent some of my friends an update on some new things in my life, and I started it with, I have stepped way outside of my comfort zone. So I fussed with the wording for a stupid long time, and it wasn't really feeling right, and I didn't know why. Eventually, I just decided to leave it alone, and I sent it. But I kept having this nagging feeling and this kind of constriction in my throat whenever I would think about it. And I kept returning to it and rereading. And every single time I would think, this doesn't really explain how I'm truly feeling about this. I came to realize that the wording of stepping outside my comfort zone was what was feeling off and not feeling accurate. It felt constricting and small, and that was not at all how I was feeling. I was feeling on top of the world, excited, expansive, and that was it. That started this whole new way of seeing things for me. It felt like freedom. It didn't feel like I was forcing my way out of my comfort zone. I realized I didn't want to even have a comfort zone. That felt too constricting and confining, because I had already become the woman who didn't need to shrink anymore. And defining a comfort zone felt like I was keeping myself small. So now I've come to believe, what if the problem isn't that we need to step out of our comfort zone, but that we've defined one in the first place? Because when we tell ourselves something is outside our comfort zone, what we're really saying is, there's this invisible line between who I am now and who I'm allowed to become. Maybe every time we say, that's not comfortable for me, we're unconsciously keeping ourselves smaller than we really are. So today we're going to talk about what it means to live as expansion. Not forcing, not striving, but allowing yourself to grow beyond the boundaries you've imagined. The whole concept of a comfort zone originally comes from psychology. It was meant to describe how people perform best when they're just slightly challenged, but not overwhelmed. And that makes sense in theory, but I think it has become this rule that we now live by. This is who I am. This is what I'm capable of. And everything beyond that is scary or unsafe. And once you label something as outside your comfort zone, you've already created a wall separating you from your own potential. So I believe that the very idea of comfort zones limits us. And for me, that limiting wall used to look like, I'm not the kind of person who speaks up first. I'm not brave enough to do that yet. That's just not me. But the truth was, it was me. It just wasn't the version I was comfortable letting the world see yet. And when I started to notice that, everything shifted. Because it wasn't that I needed to step out. I needed to stop limiting myself as to how I was defining what was comfortable in the first place. I also find that this helps me to feel more regulated, because how we feel challenged changes on a day-to-day basis. Some days I feel more able to expand, while others, I may choose to just be that day. But that's no longer a feeling of being unmotivated or down on myself. It feels more like a conscious choice. Because expansion isn't something you chase. It's something you become. You don't have to keep yourself confined inside a space that is, quote, comfortable, or that needs to be broken out of. You just soften it until it disappears. You don't have to push yourself into something new. You allow yourself to unfold into more of who you already are. So I think of it like this. Instead of standing inside a circle trying to forcefully push through the border, imagine continuing to just walk the perimeter, trailing your fingers along and expanding it wider and wider as you go, until eventually it's wide open, because you are always expanding and there is no edge to define where you stop. That, I believe, is the energy of living as expansion. And here's why it works. Because energetically and scientifically, as we've discussed, everything is energy. You, me, the conversations we have, the emotions we feel, the thoughts we think. When you define yourself as someone who's constantly growing and expanding, your body, your nervous system, your frequency all begin to align with that truth. The universe doesn't respond to what we want. It responds to what we are. It's like tuning a radio. Once you're on the right frequency, the signal becomes clear. You don't have to force it. You just become it. So when you are expansion, when you see yourself as someone who naturally grows and evolves and opens to more, you begin to attract experiences that match that energy. Versus when you define a comfort zone to either be in or out of, your energy, by definition, then has boundaries applied to it. So there's a little game I play with myself that helps me to anchor this energy. And I've mentioned it before, but I think it's really, really relevant here. And I call it my alter ego. So I envision and feel into this version of myself as I want to be, and as I am without the limiting beliefs and the keeping myself small. So really, she is my highest self. She's passionate, grounded, radiant, magnetic, smart, funny, bold. I trust her and respect her and love her as much as I do my best friends. She reminds me who I am when I am fully expanded. She doesn't see limits. She doesn't need a comfort zone. She knows who she is, and she moves through life from that place. So when I embody her energy, I naturally make different choices. I speak differently, I move differently, I believe differently. Because once you start living as the expanded version of yourself, the smaller versions just starts to dissolve. And it's not that I no longer have limitations to face, or that I don't still have things that scare or even terrify me. It's that I'm no longer defining myself as having a zone that keeps me within certain boundaries that keep me thinking small. So how do you start doing this in your everyday life? Couple practical tools for living as expansion. Number 1, notice your language. Catch yourself when you say, "That's outside my comfort zone," or "I need to step outside my comfort zone." And instead, try saying, "I'm expanding into that." Your nervous system hears the difference and it feels safer. Number 2, practice micro expansions. And these don't have to be big leaps. They can be something as much as speaking up in a meeting, wearing something that makes you feel bold, saying no to what drains you, trying something you've always wanted to do. Each one of these micro expansions is a vote for the woman who already is expansion. Number 3, tune into your body. When something feels uncomfortable, pause and ask, is this danger or expansion? Sometimes your body's resistance is just an old story trying to protect you. Number 4, anchor your identity. Each morning, ask, what would my expanded self choose today? And then follow that energy, even if it's in small, small ways. So, a journal prompt. What boundaries have I imagined that I can dissolve today? You might be surprised how many of those boundaries were never real to begin with, and were just limitations that you were putting on yourself when you were in a time of staying small. So maybe the question isn't, how do I step out of my comfort zone? Maybe it's, how do I stop pretending I have one in the first place? You don't need to step outside or break through. You can expand gently and steadily and authentically, because living as expansion means trusting that you've already become it and now it's time to live it. If you're here, I think you are ready to expand into your next chapter, not by pushing harder, but by learning to trust and embody your most aligned self. If this episode resonated, I would love to hear what part landed most for you. You can share it on Instagram and tag me at Edge of Real Podcast. And also share this with someone else who you know would benefit from this conversation. Until next time, stay open, stay curious, keep expanding. You are so much bigger than any comfort zone. And remember, you're not lost. You're on the edge of something real. Love you. Bye-bye. If what we talked about today feels close to home, if you're tired of dimming yourself down, second-guessing every decision, or feeling like you've lost track of who you really are, I want you to know you don't have to figure it out alone. This is exactly the work I do with women in my one-to-one coaching experience. Together, we talk through what's keeping you stuck, reconnect you with the truest version of yourself, and create simple, empowering steps that help you move forward with clarity, confidence, and a clear path. Knowing the steps is one thing, but actually walking them out is another. That's where coaching becomes so powerful. I'll be there to help you stay accountable, to support you when old habits try to pull you back, and to keep you moving forward even when the path feels foggy. Sometimes we all need a guide, someone who can hold the mirror, remind us who we are, and walk alongside us until we're steady in that truth ourselves. If you've been listening and thinking, yes, that is what I need, I'd love to invite you to book a free discovery call with me through the link in the show notes. I'd love to meet you and walk this path of rediscovery with you, because the edge isn't the end, it's the becoming.